Welcome back to this video series on how to build a grocery list app. In this video, what I want to do is just quickly do an overview of routing. And so we'll take a look at how do we receive data from our front end to our back end, and then how do we actually pass data back to the front end. And then in the next video, we'll get into some of the database pieces here. So let's bring up our application. So here's what we installed in the last from the last video. Let me just bring down my terminal. We scaffolded our application. We installed some dependencies, and we copied some starter code. Let me just do a quick review over what each of these statements mean. So here we need to bring in Express into this app.js file. We installed the framework, which was Express. We're going to create an instance where we can actually use some of the functionality, some of the methods that are at our disposal, such as the use and the get and the post. So we need to create an instance of Express. This is the port, which is 3000. Here, if we have images or we have PDF files, we're going to need this here. We can name this anything. It doesn't have to be assets. It could be images, but we're going to have to designate a place within our folder structure that says static, that's reserved for static assets. On line 11 is our configuration of our view templating engine, which we're going to be using HBS, which was another dependency that we installed. And then here's where we can actually parse JSON data that comes in from our client. Here, if we're working with a form, we're going to need this statement on line 17 so that we can grab some of the encoding of the how the data is actually encoded in the form, and that we can actually receive that here within our routes. So first, we have this app.get route. That's going to basically run when we go to our home page of our website. And so I'm going to name this index because in our views folder, we created a HBS file called index, and I'll just name that file. And whenever the first argument of the render method is the view you want to return. And so in this case here, I only have one view. So most of my routes will only have, basically all my routes will have just that index view. So I'm going to change that to index. And before I actually get into the detail, the nuts and bolts of routing, what I like to do is I like to comment my code. Commenting your code is going to help with really it's keeping you on task. Sometimes you can get really lost in this if you don't plan out well what you're doing. And so here, I'll just say route to home page. I'm going to have a route to create a grocery list item. I'm going to have a route that allows me to delete a grocery list item, and a route that allows me to let's see here, we have let's stick with those two there. And so I was going to have an update, but let's just save that for now. And so and I'll just copy this here. So right now I have a total of, in this case here, I have a total of 1, 2, 3 routes that I'll be using in my application. I may need an additional one as we go along, but those are the routes that I currently have. So I have the home route, and the home route, what we want to do is just test this out to make sure everything is good to go. So what we're going to do here is we'll just give the title grocery list. And let me say let's say a few words about the rest.render function. The render function, the first argument returns the view, which I previously mentioned. This second argument returns an object, and we can basically returns data back to the front end. And in this case here, I'm going to return the title. If I wanted to, I can add more data here. And so I just put a comma, and it may be helpful to look at it in this manner here. So if I were to enter, now to say name somebody, or let's say the most popular name, which is John Doe, I think it is. And so we can return a number of key value pairs for the second argument in this render function. And then here, all of these are going to return to the home. One is going to be create record. So we say create or create item. And this one's going to be delete item. And again, like I said, they're going to all go back to the home page, which is index. So we'll modify that. And we'll come back and we'll decide on what data needs to go back to our app. What you'll find I'm going to do is that I'll actually pass this. So here we have the request and response object. And this is where we can actually request certain information that was requested over the network. We can respond a certain way. I'll most likely pass this response object to our database file, and I'll talk more about why I would do that in the next video. But let's test out our application just to make sure that everything is working. And again, we only have 3 particular routes, and that's all we're going to need for this video. And then just to make sure that this is working here, I'm going to pass a little bit of data just to make sure that that's also triggering. So we go to our index, and I'll add title here. And the way to do that in handlebars is to do the squiggly. We just put the name title. And then the second value was name. So we'll go back to our HBES file. And let's put welcome. Name. And we'll save it, Control S. And then here, let's go ahead and configure Nodeman. And that's a development dependency that we're going to be using. So we'll open up our package.json file, and we're going to create a new key value pair. And we're going to say start, and we're going to give it the value of Nodeman, and we want to call the app.js file. And again, Nodeman is extremely useful, so you don't have to kill the server and start the server back up whenever you make a change. It'll listen to changes that you make to some of your JavaScript files. So let's save everything, and then let's start up our server. We're in our grocery.app file. Make sure you're in the right directory. And then to start this up, we'll say npm start, and that should start our application up on port 3000. And so let's take a look at what we have here. There we go. There's our home page, and then we can route to different pages if we wanted to, but it's all going to take us back to this home page because that's the way we set it up. So our application is working. We've configured our routes, and everything looks to be working. What we're going to do next is we're going to take a look at what data or what statements we need to put within our routes to actually create items, to delete items, and so forth. So stay tuned for the next video, and we'll dig a little bit into understanding the database and some of the different CRUD functionality that we're going to use in this app. Also, all of the code will be posted to a GitHub repository. You have access to this, and I'll post that link inside of the comment section or the description section of these videos. All right, stay tuned.